We've just got a quorum, and it's 10:45. So, may I now call to order the 7th meeting of the Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013. Agenda item number 1, meeting with the administration. So, while we're waiting for the officials to come in, I want to declare that I am an accountant. I own residential property. And my accountancy firm provides advisory or consultancy service to the clients on the 2012-2013 stamp duty. Mr. Andrew Leung, just want to repeat the same declaration. Mr. Kenneth Leung, the same for me. Mr. Abraham Sheikh, same for me. Mr. Lam Tai Fai, same for me. According to the Secretariat, I, as the chairman, have to do this job well. I understand that the Committee on Rules of Procedure is discussing this matter. If members have any suggestions, they can approach the committee. So we need to discuss paper CB 2 1503, in fact CB 11503 bracket 02 Annex C. Which paper? That's paper 1503 bracket 02 Annex C. Good morning. Yes, good morning. Yes, I want to just highlight a few salient points in the administration's response. And I think I would like to report to you the latest development in the property market and also the latest figures concerning the residential market. First 2 months in 2013, average increase per month 2.7%. In 2012, for the entire year, the monthly average increase was 24%. And then from March till October this year, the average monthly increase down to 0.3%. In September, for private residential property, the index recorded a drop of 0.3%. In October, the percentage of the figure remained pretty much the same. And then 2012, for the entire year, the increase was 25% to 46%. But then in 2013, from March till October, the monthly increase slowed down to not more than 0.5% per month. So we are of the view that the measures have served to reverse the market expectation that property prices could only go up. In fact, the figures can be found in the written reply. I just highlighted a number of important figures. Then why haven't you given us a summary of your reply? You can't just read out a figure here and a figure there. Yes, Chairman, may I refer to Para 3 CB 14911314 bracket 02. We seek to report to members the figures with regard to the residential market and the non-residential market. All right. So after you've gone through this paper, you can go to the paper on the views of the deputations. Yes, Chairman. Last time, we said that we gave members a consolidated response to the views of the deputations in July. A couple of meetings ago, we said that concerning the Law Society and the Banking Association, they did give some views on the arrangements under the bill. And I would like to update members on the latest development. Now concerning the policies, they've raised concerns in a number of areas. First of all, the policy objective of doubling the ad valorem stamp duty or AVD, they want to know what objectives we have in mind, what we want to achieve, and I think I've already given such replies before. And then concerning the doubling of the AVD, they have asked why this should apply to the non-residential market as well. Now this is because in 2012, in the whole year, there was exuberance in the non-residential property market. So we need to make sure that the exuberant situation will not extend to the non-residential property market, and that's why this measure will apply to both the residential and the non-residential market. And then they want to ask whether a sunset clause should be included in the bill. In other words, whether we should set a date for the scrapping of the measure. In fact, we've said before that we'll closely monitor changes in the market. We'll consider a number of factors, and so we don't think it's realistic to include a sunset clause in the bill. The Law Society has given some concrete and technical suggestions or views on the bill. In fact, last week we had a follow-up meeting with the Law Society. And in fact, last time we did copy our reply to the Law Society to members. So perhaps we can briefly report to members our meeting with the Law Society. Chairman. They raised 3 concerns, and the concerns were related to the Stamp Duty Bill 2012. First of all, redevelopment projects and the refund arrangements, whether these can be relaxed in order not to smother developers' incentive to carry out redevelopment programs or projects. In fact, we proposed an amendment to the 2012 bill, and we told the Law Society so. And then the second concern, if people need to purchase substitute items, for example, because of redevelopment, because of the land resumption ordinance, replacement property needed to be purchased, then they hope that there would be an exemption. And we told the Law Society that there would be a relaxation under an amendment to the 2012 bill, and there will be similar arrangements under the 2013 bill. And the third concern was if a buyer did not make a correct declaration, and as a result there might be a problem with the stamp duty, and whether that would be still be admitted by the courts. In fact, we've proposed a CSA under the 2012 bill, and there will be a similar arrangement under the 2013 bill. And apart from the 3 concerns, the Law Society also commented on other parts of the bill. First of all, the Law Society is concerned about the 6-month buy first, sell later requirement or period. And the Law Society is of the view that for people who purchase uncompleted flats, whether we can lay down objective criteria with regard to the definition and the time and the period concerned. And we told the Law Society that in fact the issue was raised by members at the last meeting, and in fact we have given our thoughts in the latest reply to members. And then, what if the stamp document includes a residential item as well as a non-residential item, for example, a parking space? And how is the IRD going to deal with such cases? In fact, the Law Society cited some actual cases, and we made the necessary clarifications to them. And then thirdly, mortgagors like banks or financial companies, they want to know what organizations can get exemptions in respect to the AVD, and we also gave an explanation to the Law Society. And finally, they said that for some beneficial owners, for example, those who inherit estates, whether they will be regarded as beneficial owners under the bill. Now, we told the Law Society that in defining whether a person was a beneficial owner, we would look at whether he owned or he was the partial or full beneficial owner before we would decide whether double ABD would apply. And then the Law Society expressed concerns about the state of the scrutiny of the bill. I told the Law Society that the administration had held a few meetings with the Bills Committee. And then concerning some basic issues, some policy issues, we had exchanged views of members.
They did say that for AVD, a new rate was announced in February this year. Solicitors have actually stored tax funds deposited by their clients. So they'd like the government to complete the regime as soon as possible so that they'll be able to handle client cases as well as tax arrangements. At that meeting, they finally raised one point. When the scrutiny of the bill is completed, in law, we would like parties concerned to complete within 30 days the transaction and pay the tax involved. As the amount of tax involved is huge, solicitors' firms will have a great deal of work to handle. So the Law Society would like us to adopt flexibility in this regard. We're willing to collaborate with, in particular, the Law Society and the Hong Kong Association of Banks, and keep in close contact with them. Most importantly, upon the enactment of the bill, together with the profession members, we will hold briefing seminars, and as in the past, on the specific guidelines and the handling of cases, we'll have further exchanges with their members. We hope that the implementation of the bill will be smooth, and we would like to expedite all matters concerned. So these are the items that I'd like to report to members. Members, just now the Bureau mentioned comments raised by members at the last meeting and responses required. This is in paper 491-02. Part of the contents are in that paper. They also responded to the deputation submissions. Some deputations agreed with the administration. Some put up queries. And there are also technical issues. I'll now hand over the floor to members. 4 minutes each for the first round. Mr. Abraham Sheikh. Madam Chairman, what's mentioned in the introductory remarks, as I said, they're dispersed in different places in the papers, including those in the table. So I'd like to have a collated paper from the administration. May I now refer you to paragraph 5. It said that for the actual transactions for residential and non-residential properties, I'd like to have some actual cases. You give us the percentages in that paragraph. I'd like to know the exact number of transactions. Besides, you use the figures for 2008. We know that in 2008, the economy had some problems. So the number of transactions was low. So if you draw comparisons with the figures in 2008, we may not get the actual picture. So we would like to know the actual situation. Look at the transactions. We have smaller numbers of transactions. Now look at 2010, 2011, and 2012. For residential properties, 156,000 to 96,000 in 2010. Well, you haven't given us the figures here. You're unwilling to give us the figures. In 2013, for residential properties, for new and old properties, how many are there? You have to give us the information. And to what extent have they dropped to 50,000, 60,000, or 70,000? For residential properties, has the numbers exceeded those of 2012? Let's focus on residential properties first. Now, this bill aims at letting Hong Kong people buy Hong Kong properties. So you would like to have demand-led measures to control the market. Whether or not these measures are to be successful will depend on a number of factors. You say you're very successful. You are comparing months to months. Look at residential properties. Starting from the 19th of November 2011, property prices have risen by 40%. And now you only give us figures for a couple of months. Look at the new properties. Their prices have risen, not dropped. So please give us actual cases. Don't just give us these figures. Those who don't know the situation may be deceived by you. The opposition parties may support you because they've not read the paper. So indirectly, you are deceiving the people of Hong Kong. You are trying to please some people who applaud you at the moment. But these applause does not represent the reality. People say, I represent the property sector. In fact, that's not. I'm speaking on behalf of the people of Hong Kong. Well, Mr. Sheikh, I have been listening to you for quite some time. I don't quite understand what you are saying. Are you on paper 491-02? Well, I'm very familiar with the information in the paper. I don't know. I don't need to read it. I'd like to have figures for the double AVD for 2010. And Madam Chairman, you're not yet chairman then. That's why I'd like to have a paper on those transactions. I'd like to know the facts. So much for the time being. I'll queue up for the second round. I won't hinder your discussion. Well, Mr. Sheikh, I don't understand what you're saying. Under Secretary, do you understand? Oh, sorry, Deputy Secretary, do you understand? Well, I understand, Mr. Sheikh. Just now, I summed up in my report what we set out in the few responses we gave you earlier. I did not have a script for my remarks just now. I just gave you the salient information. I can give you a collated paper. As I mentioned, after meeting with the Law Society, will specifically respond to their specific views and will pass the responses to this post committee. As for their suggestions, at the last round of meetings, we did provide them with a chart. Mr. Sheck asked for a chart. Then you'll be able to see the figures for 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, all the way up to 2013. I can give you a chart. In response to Mr. Sheck's suggestion, at various meetings in the past, we submitted some statistics and data. In future, we'll discuss details and the provisions in the bill. In that regard, the administration would like to give you an updated table on the specific figures with the number of transactions, the percentages, and the differences in the increases, so that members will, at one glance, know the development from 2008 to 2013. So you'll be given a full picture. Thank you. I'm pleased that the government is going to give us that paper. We did have those papers in the past. Madam Chairman, very simple. Transactions have dropped by 40%. From November 2010, there had been an increase of 40% in prices. So don't say that you are successful. Where is your success? Your success only lies in the transactions. And the solicitors said that the whole exercise had been extended. Did you tell the Law Society that it's because of the incompetence of the government that this had been dragged on for so long? If any solicitor's firm is to collapse in the interim, many people will suffer a loss. Implementation before enactment is undesirable, an undesirable procedure. You should legislate first before implementing the law. In the interim, if anything is to happen, the LegCo will not be held liable. The LegCo will only do its work well and scrutinize laws. If the government implements something before enacting a piece of legislation, is actually interrupting the rule of law of Hong Kong. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Madam Chairman, I'd like to ask about a few points in the paper. In the paper, it said that the government would increase land supply, but over a year have elapsed, nothing came forth, in particular in terms of increases of commercial properties. We also have exemptions for shop premises if they are used by their owners. But we've not seen any increases in commercial properties. So I'd like the government to tell us where the increases are. And recently, reports show that we only have 0.4% of commercial land sites. We cannot compare with Singapore. And with double AVD, would like to suppress acquisition. You're actually forcing SMEs to their death. They cannot afford the rent. There's not enough supply. So we'll all die in the end, so to speak. We ask for a sunset clause. You say it's not necessary. But the government has done nothing. The government only tells us that it's unnecessary. The government has to look into this. You say the unemployment rate is low, the economy is robust. But in 5 to 6 months' time, when the USA tapers its QE measures, I'll see how strong your economy will be. You won't be able to rescue the economy. Mr. Wong Teng Kwong, Mr. Tony Tse asked about this. As for uncompleted flats and their sale, you mentioned what the Law Society said. If I'm going to purchase an uncompleted flat, I have to pay something, including the tax, 2 odd years in advance. So tax has to be paid on both sides, on both fronts. So the government has not been able to answer members' questions. How should we handle this, Madam Chairman? Are you on paper 491? So, Deputy Secretary, would you please respond to Mr. Leung's remarks? On commercial properties, all along, Mr. Leung is very concerned about commercial land size. Yes, I'm concerned about it. So, any actual increases? Well, let Ms. Chan answer first. In the land disposal program for 2013-14, there are 9 commercial property sites for hotels as well. 330,000 square feet of gross floor area will be provided. And Kowloon East CBD is being expedited, and by the side of Wan Chai, government offices will be redeveloped. In Central and Admiralty areas, in particular of Grade A offices, there's a huge demand. So in that regard, we would actively expedite our district work in Kowloon East and in Wan Chai. When redevelopment projects are implemented, we will be able to boost land supply. As for uncompleted properties, last time Mr. Wong Ting Kwang and Mr. Tony Tse, as well as other members, also raised the same point previously. That is the 6-month period for those changing their properties. In the latest reply in our paper, that is in paper 491, paragraph 8 to paragraph 14, we've presented our preliminary views. As we mentioned at the last meeting, to set this period is on the basis of 2 considerations. We hope that priority will be given to Hong Kong permanent residents who do not own properties at the moment. Secondly, under the bill, if we have exemptions, we would like the exemptions to be narrow and strict. Under that pretext, members mentioned one category, that is the so-called uncompleted properties. In terms of law and procedures, we had conducted some preliminary analysis. I'd like to briefly report to members. When we considered whether for uncompleted properties we should have targeted arrangements, we have to look at a number of aspects.
First, whether we can act in an objective and targeted manner concerning uncompleted property. Do we have a legal basis to come up with a definition? Whether the definition is clear so that other types of property will not be caught by that definition. And then uncompleted flats, we understand that there is at the moment the consent scheme, which is subject to the approval of the Lands Department. The Lands Department looks at whether certain preliminary requirements have been met by the developer, whether the foundation has been laid, whether approval has been obtained from the relevant departments on the superstructure and also the funding or the financing. And so from the sale of the uncompleted flats to the point people can move into the flats, there are a number of steps in between. And so if we are to come up with objective standards, we have to very carefully study the steps in between, and we also have to look at the timing. Now, in fact, we think 6 months is a suitable arrangement. We've tried to balance different factors in the policy, and so we need to be very careful in studying the issue of uncompleted flats. So we've just given members a preliminary analysis. We'd like to hear members' views, and I understand that the Lands Department, the DOJ, and the Transport and Housing Bureau will study the matter in greater detail, and then we can come back to members. Mr. Dennis Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I understand that the administration has met the Law Society on the details and the technicalities in the bill. It is said in the paper that the Law Society would want to see an early passage of the bill. As you know, solicitors have to deal with a lot of property transaction cases, and they feel that they are now at a limbo, so to speak, and they hope that the legislative process can be completed as early as possible. But then at the same time, the legal sector fully understands that this is a new bill with a lot of technical difficulties, and so it takes time to carefully scrutinize the bill and to resolve the various issues involved. So will you be giving written replies to the Law Society on the technical issues? How long will we take to prepare a reply for the Law Society? Now, in fact, Mr. Kwok, the Deputy Secretary, has already briefed us on the discussion between the administration and the Law Society, and perhaps you can supplement later. And concerning the administration's written reply to the Law Society that has been copied to members. Yes. On the 20th of November, Chairman, we gave a consolidated reply to the Law Society, and we gave the letter to members in the bundle of papers for the meeting dated the 22nd of November. Yes, I know, but I understand that the Law Society has raised some follow-up questions concerning your reply. Yes, that's correct. In fact, before you were here, I had told members that we had a meeting with Law Society last Friday. In fact, we have had exchanged correspondence with Law Society, and we have also had meetings with Law Society. In fact, during the meeting, the Law Society raised further questions on the details and the technicalities, and they actually cited some cases for us to comment on, including what will happen if a stamped document includes both a residential item and a non-residential item, how we will fix the AVD rates. And then second, concerning the transfer of benefits of a beneficial owner, and also what if a document has not been properly stamped, say because the buyer has given some representation, then who should be held responsible, and will that document be admissible in the courts as a proper document? And then a mortgager, like a bank or a finance company, what our arrangements are, and then beneficial owners and beneficial interests or rights, how these should be defined. Now, we've promised Law Society that we will give them a response. We plan to reply next week, and the reply will again be copied to the Bills Committee. Yes, thank you very much. I hope that the communication will continue. So our members will receive a copy of your reply to Law Society next week. Yes, correct. Kenneth Leung, Chairman. In the afternoon yesterday, I had a meeting with the Australia Institute of Australian Certified Public Accountants, and they've done a survey, and 29% of professional accountants under 40 years old plan to emigrate. 29%, Chairman. This is an alarming figure. There are two main points. First, quality of living. Second, business environment. Let me say something about business environment. Now, some small and medium-sized accountancy firms have told me that they've received notice from the landlords that the rentals of their office premises will be increased by 1/3. In fact, these small and medium-sized accountancy firms would like to purchase their office premises. But then, as Mr. Andrew Leung has said, the supply of commercial property is not enough. The administration has told us that there is a long-term plan. The administration wants to set up another CBD outside Hong Kong Island, but that will take, I think, at least 5 to 8 years. And concerning this Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, it seeks to double the ABD. Now, as I've said, these accountancy firms want to purchase and own their own office premises. So it's really a deadlock we have here. Now, you want to stabilize the price of commercial property, and at the same time you're increasing the cost of the operators. In fact, in our sector, the wastage rate is already very high, and we've got this bill. There is no exemption, so I think you are really rubbing salt onto a wound. In fact, small and medium-sized accountancy firms are operating under great difficulty. I think you really need to take into account the long-term development of small and medium-sized enterprises. Why is it that no exemptions can be enjoyed by SMEs? Deputy Secretary, I believe members raised such concerns from day one. Now, Chairman, I'm not just making casual comments. I'm citing new data, new information for the reference of members. Yes, but I just want to say that members have already raised such concerns before. Chairman, I think we shouldn't just look at one sector or one profession in society. Large enterprises, SMEs, accountancy firms, other businesses, we look at them as a whole. Now, concerning the AVD, the administration's position has all along been clear and consistent. In fact, we have in mind the need to improve upon the long-term business environment, because for non-residential property, we've seen exuberance in terms of the prices and the number of or volume of transactions. In 2012, for non-residential property, including industrial property, office, and shop spaces, when compared with the peak in 1997, there was an increase of 70% to 200%, and prices have been affected, rentals have been affected, and many have said that this in the long run will affect Hong Kong's business environment. We've balanced all factors, and we are of the view that there shouldn't be any exemption for non-residential property. We needed to immediately end the exuberance in the market. This will, in the long run, help the business environment, because if non-residential property prices keep going up, that will also affect the business environment in Hong Kong. So the Deputy Secretary said that the upward momentum in prices had to be arrested immediately. Can you show us the effect? It seems that the volume of transactions has dropped very significantly, but not the prices. Let me give members some figures. 2012, the entire year, on the average, the monthly increase in prices with regard to industrial premises, office premises, and shop spaces from 25% to 46%. In 2013, with the launching of the measure from March to October, the monthly increase was not more than 0.5%. But I don't think there has been any freeze. In fact, prices are still rising. The upward momentum has not been arrested or reversed. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, yes, Chairman, may I refer to para 9 to 14 of para 491 bracket 02 with regard to the arrangements for uncompleted flats. Now, I didn't raise the issue of the 6-month period anymore. But I want to say that, in fact, this is really a very short period of time. People have to apply for internal decorations for the new flat. They have to sell their existing flats. But then I dare not say anything about the 6-month period because the administration insisted that that should not be changed. And para 12 says that any targeted arrangement must come with clear definition and objective criteria in the legislation. And then it is said that the government has to be careful in looking at the issue of occupation permits. And then it is said that many steps have to be undertaken before the transactions can be completed. Now, I think you're contradicting yourself. Occupation permits are issued by government departments. They are not issued by the developers. So the definition cannot be unclear as to when occupation permits are issued. The date is perfectly clear. No one can make up a date. No one can change the date. So it's clear that there will be clear definitions and objective criteria. And then this double AVR, it has to be paid first. And then there can be an application for refund. So the person who has paid the tax has to apply to the IRD for a refund, and so all the assessment criteria can be decided by the IRD.
Therefore, the IRD can exercise discretion in relation on the basis of objective criteria. So there's no question of somebody delaying the payment of stamp duty. The IRD takes the lead. Thirdly, consider the uncompleted properties. Of course, there are people who've moved from small properties to big properties. But have you considered the situation when economy encounters difficulty? People may be moving from big properties to small properties. If you still impose a double AVD, will you be adding to the burden of these people? So on the basis of these 3 points that I just mentioned, the Bureau should seriously consider the issue. I'm not favoring the land developers or whatnot, but in reality, this is impracticable. From the time when you purchase an uncompleted properties to the time of delivery, will 6 months be enough? Even if you give me 26 months, it won't be sufficient. Deputy Secretary, well, we've listened to Mr. Wang Ting-kwang's very clear views. There are several points there, and we'll bring them back for examination, and would like to listen to further views on those areas. I have 2 points in response. First, at the last meeting, some members asked whether the occupation permit could be used for definition. Well, that may be a solution, but if we have targeted arrangements for uncompleted properties, the Lands Department will be responsible for vetting under the consent scheme, and arrangements have to be made to satisfy the terms of the land grant. Apart from obtaining an occupation permit from the Buildings Department, the developer has to satisfy requirements in terms of infrastructure like roads and bridges. They have to obtain a certificate of compliance from the Lands Department before the developer can inform the purchasers to complete the transactions. That is, to complete the final transaction documents and deeds. So for uncompleted properties, if we have other targeted arrangements, then definition will be important in terms of time and procedures. We have to be very careful in looking at those areas. Secondly, I'd like to emphasize that the existing 6-month payment first arrangement, it will be helpful in assisting in our intention of effective implementation of the bill. If we are to further relax or grant further exemptions, we have to study carefully the number of cases to see whether or not it meets with our requirements, because we have to adopt an appropriate methodology for any measures or policies. Over 80% of commercial property transactions are in completed properties and existing properties, and first-hand sales only amount to around 10%. And how many through the consent scheme for uncompleted flats or under the sale of newly completed properties? We have to examine the changes in recent months in our assessment process. Mr. Wang Ting-kwang, the enactment of laws should not be based on who's the stronger party in the matter. You have to study the amount of uncompleted flats involved in the cases. As you said, for the secondary market, we have 80% of the cases, and only 20% of the cases are involved the newly completed properties. Given that property ownership is difficult at the moment, it is very common for people to purchase uncompleted properties. So don't just look at the 80% of sales in the secondary market. You have to take care of the 20% of transactions for newly completed properties. So don't think that the percentage is small, then you don't need to pay so much attention to those cases. I think people share the same sentiments and feelings. Everybody may have a chance of encountering the same situation. Well, I don't want public resentment to accumulate in society. Deputy Secretary will consider different factors and carefully strike a balance. We've listened to members' views already. Mr. Lam Tai-Fai? Madam Chairman, all along, we are very worried about the impact of government measures on relevant industries and trades, like state agencies, cleansing, repair and maintenance, and so forth. Now, I've read this paper of paper 491, or paper 1503-02, and the annexes. And we have the unemployment rates. Now we're in the fourth quarter of 2013. We've got comparison figures with the first quarter of 2013 only. BSD was implemented in early February 2013. So if you only give us those two sets of figures, you won't be able to reflect the whole reality. So why you give us Annex B? Because you're only comparing the same periods. Of course, there's no impact. Why don't you give us the figures for the second and third quarters of 2013 or the forecast fourth quarter figures? You must have the statistics. You must have monitored the situation in Q2 and Q3. You'll be closely monitoring the relevant trades and industries. You are very concerned about unemployment rates. You must have the figures. When are you going to give us the figures? Why is it that you deliberately gave us the figures for Q1 only? Is it that, like Mr. Abraham Sheikh said, you'd like to do cosmetic work for the situation? You just want to hide the true picture. Secondly, for the demand management measures, the government would like to cool the property markets immediately because the property market has been exuberant. According to the administration just now, it has immediately, successfully cooled the property market. As our colleague said, you would like to cool the property market. Do you have a sunset clause? You said a sunset clause would be unrealistic because it is difficult to forecast the future property market. That's what you said. That's why you're not going to give us a sunset clause. So we asked, under what circumstances or criteria would you withdraw the measures? And you gave us some paradoxical remarks, be it a basket of factors or whatnot. So I don't know under what circumstances or criteria would you withdraw the measures. You say the sunset clause is unrealistic. You don't want to set a time limit. And then we ask you when you're going to withdraw the measures. You said it's difficult to forecast the future property market. So is it your intention to cool the property market forever? Until the end of this term of the SARG? And then I ask you, any policies and measures adopted by the SARG must not go against the development trend formulated by the CPG. After the handover, we have one country, two systems, a high degree of autonomy. And then one of the emphasis is to have capitalism. That is to keep prosperity. To have prosperity, you must have a smooth economy. So are you going to cool the property market forever? Then you get a good economy. Are you going to administratively intervene with the property market and economy? Is that capitalism? I really don't know what you're getting at. So please tell us something about capitalism, prosperity and stability. Please start from those aspects and please give us the other unemployment rates. Deputy Secretary, first of all, concerning unemployment rates, for Mr. Lam Tai Fai's mention of the paper, it's actually in response to questions raised by members at the meeting on the 13th of June. Back then, we only got statistics for the first quarter of 2013, so we did not intend to hide anything. In hand, I don't have the concrete data. I don't want to give member wrong figures. But previously, I regularly kept kept in contact with the government economist. I understand that the figures for Q3 2013 are similar to those of Q1 2013. We'll furnish members with the latest data very soon. Sorry, after the meeting you're going to give us the figures for Q2 and Q3? Yes. As for monitoring the property market, at the last meeting, we pointed out that the government had considered specific reference indicators, including the global interest rates and trends, the supply of properties, property prices, affordability on the part of the public, etc. Let me say this. For property markets, apparently, initially, we've been able to stop the escalation of property prices. Therefore, we've attained a cooling effect. As for public affordability, we have to look at it very carefully. In Q2 of 2013, the affordability stood at 56%, higher than the annual average between 1993 to 2013. Well, you're not answering my question. I did not ask you for interest rates. I asked you about your views on capitalism, stability and prosperity. Well, for the second round and third round, she's repeating the same points. I've given you ample time to speak. Well, the Deputy Secretary's answer is not good enough. It's not good for her to continue like that. Madam Chairman, affordability is related to property prices, supply, and external economy. The government will carefully consider all these factors. A sunset clause is not realistic. We undertook to the Bills Committee that upon the enactment of the bill, we'll conduct a review in a year's time. Apart from that review, every week, every month, we closely monitor the property market. We don't propose a sunset clause. The property market will not benefit if there's a sunset clause, because a sunset clause may lead to speculation and undesirable transactions. So we have to be very careful and look at all reference indicators and indices. We'll have a comprehensive assessment before doing comprehensive adjustments, etc. Well, what about capitalism, stability and prosperity? Will you respond? Sorry, no, Chairman. Why not? We cannot go against the overall policy of the CPG. You're now going against capitalism. Let's focus on non-residential properties. Why not withdraw the measures? You've cooled the market. It's a pool of stagnant water at the moment. You cannot manifest capitalism. How can you not answer that? It is very wrong because that's against the major policy of the CPG.
Do you have anything to say? No. Mr. Tommy Zhang. In fact, I really don't want to ask questions because people are taking us around in circles, and it's raining. The ground may be slippery. Right. Now, the 6-month period is unreasonable. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong said that he did not suggest or comment on the 6-month period because the administration was adamant. But I think they can be adamant. We can also be adamant. The Deputy Secretary said that last year the increase in prices was excessive, and this year the situation improved. I think we need to have the increases in preceding years, 2011, 2010. So was it that every year in the past 5 years the price increase was over 20%, but in fact in 2008, 2009 there weren't such increases. Now we are of the view that a sunset clause is very important. Now yesterday the retail figures in the US were announced and the figures were very good, and it is commonly believed that the market withdrawal from the market will come very soon, and so the funds will be taken away. And then if interest rates go up, then property prices will plunge, and you won't be able to rescue the property market in time. Now you keep talking about whether people can afford the prices. In fact, a lot depends on the rate of return and how much banks are willing to lend. If interest rates go up, people may decide to put their money in the bank accounts to get interest instead of buy property. At the moment, the property is that there is too much idle money, so to speak, lying around, and the interest rates are really too low. Now, Deputy Secretary. Now, in fact, many members have voiced their worries because they know what's happening in the market, they know what the problems are. And so I think if the administration wants more harmony, then it should listen to our views instead of remaining stubborn. If you remain stubborn, then those who suffer will be the people of Hong Kong. I don't need a response from her. Do you need to say anything? Deputy Secretary, I just want to say that we are aware of the issues raised by Mr. Zhou. Now, concerning non-residential property prices, in fact, we gave members a table in June. And I, in fact, told Mr. Abraham Sheikh that the table will be issued to members every time for comparison. Now, concerning retail shop spaces, in 2010, the cumulative increase in price was about 20%. 2011, about 20%. But at 2012, for the entire year, up 41%. So you can see that in 2012, there was exuberance in the non-residential property market, and I think I will issue the table to members every time for their reference and comparison. Except that I have 4 minutes, Chairman. As she has responded, I will also reply. In 2010, 2011, there were no harsh measures. So perhaps you can include a sunset clause saying that if the price increase in a year is under 20%, then the measure can be scrapped, because it seems that you think 20% is okay, but 40% is unacceptable. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Yes, Chairman. When the Financial Secretary briefed the FA panel on Hong Kong's financial situation, I asked him what objective indicators there were for the government to consider, a basket of factors, for example, interest rates and so on and so forth. Say if certain indicators are reached, then the harsh measures will be scrapped entirely or in phases. But the Financial Secretary didn't really give a reply. Now, I'm not trying to criticize you, Deputy Secretary, but I think this policy may give rise to insider transactions. In other words, within the government, some people will know when the measure will be scrapped. Not you, maybe EXCO members and some others. And as a result, some people may purchase property in advance of the scrapping of the measure. So transparency is very important. You should come up with a basket of indicators. For example, drop in prices, interest rates, supply of flats, right? So you give us a formula which will serve as a triggering point for the scrapping of the measure. This is important for an efficient market. People will know what's going to happen under certain circumstances. But at the moment, there is a total lack of transparency. So some may know that, when property prices have dropped by, say, 25%, then the measures will be scrapped, and then property prices may rebound for over 10%. Why can't you come up with a basket of indicators or factors? Yes, the task may be difficult, but then there is no sunset clause. There aren't such indicators available. So in fact, to put it in simple terms, Hong Kong people are asked to trust the government. The government knows the market, it understands the market, and the measure will be withdrawn at an appropriate time. Now, if the pro-establishment camp, even the pro-establishment camp, can't trust you, how can you expect the pan-democrats to trust you? Deputy Secretary. Yes, we've said many times that we do have objective indicators and also factors to go by. These factors and indicators affect each other. The development of the property market doesn't rely on one single factor, or is not influenced by one single factor. These factors and indicators do interact with each other. As Mr. Sin has pointed out, some want a sunset clause. But even if we set a sunset clause, and we think that's really unrealistic or not pragmatic, and there will also be some rigid impact on the development of the market. Allow me 5 seconds to respond. Yes, I'll let you respond later. Now you keep saying that you will consider a number of factors. Can you tell us in very clear terms what those factors are? Yes, Chairman, last time we gave members a paper on a number of factors and indicators. First of all, property prices and affordability of prospective home buyers. Second, volume of transactions. Third, balance of supply and demand. Fourth, mortgage loan growth and interest rates. But then these indicators do affect one another, and there is no single indicator which can reflect the overall situation. And so we need to carry out an overall assessment of all these factors. Now, concerning the objective data, we have shared them with members. The administration has promised to carry out a comprehensive assessment 1 year after the passage of the bill, and we will come back to members and report to members. We're going to have a comprehensive assessment of all the stamp duty related measures. In fact, we on a daily basis monitor the property market and assess the market situation. Mr. Sin, in fact, I mentioned such factors as well, but I think you need to quantify these indicators. In other words, what the triggering points are for scrapping the harsh measures. Please let me finish, Chairman. Yes, there are these 4 factors or 4 categories of factors. I'm not challenging these factors, but you need to quantify them as well. So, Chairman, what I am asking for is that these be quantified. Now it's like the issuing of the free-to-air TV licenses. People who have no experience in operating TV services say there should be 2 and no more. No, in this case, it's you may easily facilitate or give rise to insider dealings. And concerning property market transactions, they are not subject to the SFC's insider dealings tribunal or market misconduct tribunal. I am worried that those in the highest level within government may be able to carry out insider dealings, and it will be difficult to establish a case. These factors are interactive, as I have said, Chairman, and I think we will inform members the changes that have taken place in the past few years concerning these indicators, and why we've decided that demand side management measures are needed. But then concerning quantifying these indicators or stating under what circumstances the measures will be phased out or scrapped, that will be difficult. But then we'll try to explain to members our analysis of the changes that have taken place or that have occurred in these indicators, so that members will know that, in fact, our decision to implement the measures is a considered one. Perhaps you can tell us the range of factors you have in mind. And please also tell us what situations were regarded by the administration as unreasonable and worrying, thus warranting some action to be taken. Mr. Paul Chair. Yes, Chairman. I understand that the measure affects the Hong Kong economy and Hong Kong's competitiveness. Mr. Tam Tai Fai referred to preserving the capitalist system in Hong Kong. Now, concerning the residential property market, we can say that we do understand why the government needs to do something. But then for non-residential property, I think we really need more justifications from the administration to convince us. And I think this paper contains some misleading points. May I refer to para 6, Chairman? Now, perhaps I can paraphrase what is said in para 6. The conclusion is that there is nothing to indicate that there has been an obvious decrease in Hong Kong's competitiveness internationally. Now people keep talking about a basket of factors, a basket of figures. Yes, if you look at a basket of factors, yes, you may be right. Now, but you look at regional headquarters, it's obvious from 09 to 10, there was an increase of 33, and then 10 to 11, 55, 11 to 12, up 37, but 12 to 13, up 12 only.
Although there are increases, but the increases have been dropping in pace. Take regional officers as an example. The increases from 2010 to 2011 or 2011 to 2012, it is 104, and from 2012 to 2013 is negative 60. So there's no increase, but a drop. So you said that there's no obvious decrease. I cannot agree with you. That's point number 1. Take Singapore's figures as an example. They've been very successful in promoting regional headquarters. In the annex, it said that they had over 7,000, and in Hong Kong we got only 1,300 odd. This gives us the impression that Hong Kong is actually killing itself. So is this a wise choice? any measure, particularly this one, has been emphasized as a temporary and non-regular measure. So shouldn't we be cautious? We should not, so to speak, intoxicate everybody. In Singapore, starting from 2013, in January, they have an increased stamp duty, but for citizens only 7%, PR 10%. So the small figure, but in Hong Kong, the rise was 100% in one go. I don't know why the government deemed it necessary to intoxicate Hong Kong's market like this. Apart from figures, we had this case of Google not coming to Hong Kong. Of course, some people say that Google is not coming to Hong Kong because of their concern about transparency and confidentiality. Is it also because we're increasing stamp duty? And for non-residential properties, the increases in price and number of transactions. Sorry, please continue. Well, very briefly. At present, for prices, rentals have never dropped. The number of transactions has dropped, probably because owners had effected less transactions, but rentals have risen. And for old owners, because they don't have to pay the stamp duty, they can effect a lesser increases. You are not able to assist the SMEs. Kenneth Leung mentioned the small and medium accountancy firms. We don't have the figures from the government. But for those applying to leave Hong Kong for the accountancy firms, we can see that very few foreign law firms are coming into Hong Kong. So, your measures have not been able to assist Hong Kong residents in home ownership. You are intoxicating Hong Kong's market and Hong Kong's competitiveness. And Hong Kong is a very important economy in the world. So don't give us misleading figures. Deputy Secretary, I'd like to answer Mr. Paul Dare's question in two aspects. First of all, for non-residential properties, for the enhanced stamp duty and its impact on Hong Kong's business environment and competitiveness, I'd like to emphasize that Hong Kong government attaches huge importance to attracting foreign investments and businessmen to Hong Kong to allow them to set up businesses in Hong Kong. We're concerned about long-term business environment. In the property market, in terms of prices and rentals, we considered that we need to adopt emergency measures. And we've referred members to these figures for many years. Of course, we won't just refer members to these figures. Members raised a number of other concerns. For example, local and foreign businessmen, when they decide whether or not to come to Hong Kong to set up their businesses, they give regard to a number of factors. And the nature and scale of their business will also affect their commercial decision. But just looking at the figures itself won't be enough. As for the Singaporean figures, on their websites and from relevant information, we may not be able to obtain relevant details and breakdowns, and they may not have clear definitions either. So it may not be appropriate to draw a direct comparison. As for rentals, we've been monitoring them continuously. For non-residential properties, apart from property prices, which was worrying in 2012 with an exuberant market, we observed that since the new measures were adopted in February, what rental changes have been effected. Let me share with you this. In 2012, apart from factories, offices, and commercial properties, property prices have risen by 24 to 40% As for rentals, there were increases between 8% to 13%. After the measures were implemented, we conducted analysis for March to August 2013. Rental increases have slowed down by about 1%. We don't think the property market has stabilized. We don't think the exuberance has cooled down yet. Given the exuberance of the property prices and rentals, we would like to ease them such that SMEs and large enterprises will face lesser operational pressure when they operate their business in Hong Kong. Can the Deputy Secretary give us a paper of those figures on rentals and property prices and comparisons after the meeting? Mr. James To, I'd like to follow up on colleagues' questions. I'd like to know whether or not the government agrees that not just this basket of factors should be considered. The government would try to move closer to our members. That is, to provide us with quantitative indicators. Or are you going to tell us you emphasize one factor more than others? Will you also tell us your worries? And amongst your worries, what is more important? Well, Deputy Secretary, there are a few difficulties here. She said something is unrealistic. I personally cannot agree with her. You say there's a degree of difficulty. Of course there's a degree of difficulty. Otherwise we don't need you. The Fed also has difficulties in formulating quantitative indicators. The Fed chairman can also respond by saying that there's a basket of factors. It's not just like what Mr. Sin Chung Kai said. It's not just to reduce insider dealings, human manipulation, irregularities, etc. Of course, we have to guard against those. On the whole, you have to let society knows what is going to expect. Otherwise, society will continue to do speculation, be it the stock market or the property market. At what level will you calculate risks and interests? Everybody will do a calculation, even the speculators, even for homeowners. So you should try to provide as much information as possible to society for assessment. Please understand that this world is not divided into speculators and non-speculators. Some people want to own properties because of certain factors. And so for these people, they would like to have more information for passing a judgment. Well, they may want to buy at a higher price because they have a need. So they need to take care of the thoughts of the government. If they understand the government more, they won't complain. They may be willing to buy at a higher price. The difficulty now is that many people are just waiting and waiting. And when they're waiting, they have to pay a price. And some people even sell their property when waiting. So to different people, they would like the market to grow healthily. The government must not say that, oh, I own the information, you don't, the property does not, the market does not have to know the information. Then I can deal you a blow when you're not prepared. I think you have to be fair to all sectors of the community, overall speaking. So it's not just a matter of insider dealing. Deputy Secretary, I've listened very clearly to Mr. James To. I've listened to his views and opinion. In government's deliberation, we conduct comprehensive assessment and we look at objective data. We are not going to set a time limit. We're not going to set a threshold or any indicator. But we'll try, on the basis of the factors that we have heard at these meetings, make use of objective data to deepen our deliberation such that councillors and members of the public will be able to see what objective information and references the government is using in the course of deliberation. So we'll try to provide objective information. Any more for the first round? Mr. Tony Dare. Madam Chairman, I was late. Probably this has been raised already. My view is like this. The government provided a response paper on the 22nd of November. I think for tax refund and acquisition before disposal, which are our major concerns, the 4 justifications put forward by the administration are not justifications at all. Well, they mention the scenario of one person holding 2 properties, but one property cannot be transferred. And then for speculative activities, after speculation, there will not be any tax refund. If I own 2 properties, one is an uncompleted property, before I've sold the property that I now own, I won't be entitled to tax refund. All right, if you are willing to pay double AVD, you can purchase at any time. So there's no difference. But we want to take care of those who genuinely want to change properties. If the period allowed for uncompleted properties is to be extended to 30 months, then people can plan for themselves. 6 months may not be their choice unless they want to buy completed properties. And then for ratio, as the percentages are so low, the impact would not be huge. It's just 10%. So I don't understand why that should be a justification for rejection. And then for occupation permit and certificate of compliance, please write that clearly into your provisions. For some properties, they don't need a certificate of compliance or occupation permit. For the old deeds, they don't need a certificate of compliance. That's number 3. Number 4. The whole issue should follow your fundamental principle, that is, demand management. What do we want to attain? We'd like to give priority to Hong Kong people. That is, to give them more choices, such that Hong Kong people won't be so disturbed in terms of property ownership. Well, the justifications of the administration are no justifications at all. They're just trying to make them up. So I don't agree that those are justifications. I insist that for Hong Kong permanent residents who want to buy properties or change properties, they should be entitled to buy uncompleted properties and they shouldn't be required to pay extra tax because of buying uncompleted properties.
This is a comment only. I don't think I need a reply. All right, we hope that the Deputy Secretary can consider these suggestions and give us some replies next time. All right, second round, Ibrahim Sheikh, Chairman. I think the Deputy Secretary has a difficult task. She is not the Director of Bureau. She didn't make the policy. She didn't decide on the policy. I think she has been working very hard. We really can't blame her. The Deputy Secretary said that we could give our views. The administration would try to consider the suggestions, and then she kept explaining the administration's position. So the Deputy Secretary is now as eloquent as Mr. Leung. He hasn't really taken on board our views. She keeps repeating the position of the government. In fact, we're not now talking about the government is not concerned about a basket of factors. The government is implementing one-man rule. And then may I refer to para 8. It is said that 2010 82.3%, and then 2011 83.5%, and then 86%. So they are claiming success. But then I think these figures are deceptive. It's meaningless merely looking at the percentages, because the volume of transaction has gone down, and people are purchasing property using the names of people who are non-permanent residents. Now, in fact, previously, 11% of the buyers of property were companies. They were not necessarily speculators. So if you do not know the situation, if you do not know the market, then you may be deceived by the administration. She told Mr. Zheng that in 2010 the rise was 2012 the rise was 40%. Now, Mr. Zheng, at that time, some people wanted to invest and they purchased parking spaces, because parking spaces were regarded as non-residential property. So this government is trying to pull wool over our eyes. This government is cunning. I have been in Hong Kong for 68 years and never have I seen a government which wants so much to deceive the Hong Kong people. Statistics are lies. Now, Mr. Lam Pai Fai, who is a pro-establishment member, a pro-government member, he is, asked why we were going against the principles of free trade and an international financial center under the basic law. Article 105 mentions free trade. Article 108, a low tax regime. All right. But now we're talking about BSD, SSD, 23.5%. This is a very high tax rate by European and US standards. You've violated Basic Law 108 and then Basic Law 109. Hong Kong should be kept as an international financial center. You know, many chambers of commerce, insurance companies in North America have complained very seriously. And then Basic Law 115 says that we should practice free trade. Do you know that we are now not as competitive as Singapore in Asia? And in fact, we have been overtaken by Shanghai with regard to competitiveness of Chinese cities. And it is said in the report that Shenzhen will overtake us very soon. And then, as Paul said, Google has decided not to come. And that's partly because our government policies are uncertain. Policies may change overnight, and this is because we have one-man rule here. Deputy Secretary. Now, I think Mr. Shag, I think you are saying that we should study the figures, but we shouldn't merely rely on figures. Now, don't put words into my mouth. I think we need to trust figures, but we shouldn't simply look at figures and figures alone. Chairman, in fact, I and my team are very sincere in working with the Bills Committee. We are willing to provide members of the latest figures, the latest trends. We'll try to present the figures in the format that members prefer. So we'll be sharing figures, percentages with members. And we have no intention to deliberately mislead members. We just try to share the information that we have in hand with members. And then we have all along been advocating and encouraging free trade. This is a policy that we attach great importance to. Now, concerning the double AVD, we're not trying to influence people's decision to enter the market. But given the exuberance in the property market in Hong Kong, we felt that the demand side management measures were required. And we were of the view that the double AVD could immediately arrest the upward momentum in prices. Now, Chairman, I really don't want to argue with her. People may say I'm filibustering. There was in November 2010, since the SSD was implemented, there has been an increase in property prices of 30 to 40%. So how come they still claim that there is effective management, or there has been effective management? All right, sorry, another member is queuing up. Very brief, Chairman, and there is another problem. And I want to say that for the landlords of non-residential property, your measures have reduced competition, and as a result, rentals have been going up. They've promised to give you figures about rentals next time, not merely rentals. Class A officers, Class AB officers, Class C officers, we want to have the figures in these various categories. You know, to SMEs, the rental expenditure is a heavy burden. Mr. James told. We discussed the paper on the 6-month period. In fact, we're studying 2 papers at the same time. Paper 491 and also Annex C of a previous paper. Oh yes, Chairman. May I refer to para 14, Chairman? Paper 491, bracket 02, para 12. It says that members' views will be taken into account, and there will be further follow-up discussions and analysis. All right, Chairman. Now, I want to ask a question about one point in para 12. This is surprising. You are saying that a clear definition and objective criteria in the legislation is required to facilitate effective implementation by the RLD. All right, this I can understand. So, and then you're asking how we can clearly define the date of issue of the occupation permits. Are we talking about the occupation permits or the certificates of compliance? I think the administration's team is capable of studying this matter. And I'm not talking about this 2013 bill. I'm now talking about the 2012 bill. And the Bills Committee is chaired by you as well, Chairman. Concerning redevelopment. But the administration heard the views of members, URA, and developers interested in redevelopment. And you said that you would consider looking at refund arrangements for redevelopment projects. But then you said that you wanted certainty and you wanted to guard against abuse, and you were able to come up with an earlier date. Similarly, in this bill, now in fact there is a high degree of certainty with regard to the purchase of uncompleted flats. And what is meant by completion? So, otherwise, during what time can a person be owning 2 flats at the same time? Now, in fact, it's not difficult at all to find that date. I don't think this technical difficulty outlined in para 12 is hard to overcome. And then para 10. We talk about a long period of time, all right? In effect, letting people holding more than one residential property for a long period of time. Say a person buys, once the exemption, he buys the flat, a flat from one developer, and you are assuming that the developer has this tacit understanding with the owners that these flats will never be completed till a certain time. All right. Do you know whether developers can get the balance of payment? Depends on when certain documents are issued by the government. So I think you'll definitely be able to find a way out. I don't think the difficulty is impossible to overcome. In fact, the Deputy Secretary has promised to consider this matter. I've heard Mr. To's comment, Chairman. Now, in considering whether changes or exemptions should be given, we need to consider 4 factors. Now, I'm not using this technical difficulty as an excuse to refuse to consider exemptions. Now, I just want to say that these 4 categories of factors are interrelated, and so when we need to come up with a clear definition, we need to consider the time factor and while we're looking at completed flats, will we have to look at non-consent schemes? And then what about some completed flats? And what if those who've purchased completed flats put forward similar reasons or justifications? We have to consider all the risks before we come up with the most prudent and cautious recommendation. And of course, we do welcome members' suggestions. Please consider this. In fact, some are of the view that in fact a 6-month period shouldn't apply to first-hand residential property, not to mention uncompleted flats, and members are not convinced. So please consider the matter further.
Madam Chairman, for the time being, from what I heard, in society and in the market, this proposed 6-month period is rather harsh. We've heard those voices. From the viewpoint of the government, there is a need to maintain the 6-month period. And then if we are to have special arrangements, they must be targeted arrangements. So given that pretext, we'll carefully consider all relevant risks and impacts. Well, we don't have much time left. Any more questions on these 2 papers? Mr. To? One supplement. I hope that the government will not just consider new properties. Yes, that point was raised. Given the original proposal of 6 months and the present situation, it is very difficult for you to sell a property. That's true. Well, Madam Chairman, I'm not selling a property, but this is real. I know that some people want to sell their properties but have encountered difficulties. If you say, oh, in this world, price is the only concern, that is dangerous. Now we are concerned about the impact of the double AVD. A stamp duty of a few percentage points may have huge impact on property owners. If property owners cannot sell their properties, well, you want to give exemption to those who genuinely want a replacement. But if property owners cannot sell their properties, there will be a problem. So I hope that after implementing the measure for a period of time, there will be relaxation. If we are to legislate, we have to bear in mind very closely that for those who genuinely want to have a replacement, that is, they want to change their properties, this proposal that you are putting forth is not attaining its objective. Now, if you are to relax it to a year, you're actually most concerned about those holding two properties. So you have to compare the risks. And according to your assessment, how will your objective be affected by relaxing the period? Say how many people will think that they will benefit if they hold two properties. So you have to assess the risks. You have to consider the possibility of QE tapering and a downturn of the market. And you have to consider those property owners who would like to change properties. So in my opinion, even if you extend it to a year, the risk will be small. Mr. Shek? Well, the amendment I suggest will solve the problem. I would like to extend the period from 6 months to a year. The CE, Mr. Leung, and the Bureau Director, Mr. Cheung, said that nothing could be changed. So why the Deputy Secretary can listen to our views here? Is it now the supreme instruction that changes can be made? Is it that now my amendments can be accepted? Or is Mr. Leung going to tell us, no, there cannot be any change? This is a question of governance. So has he changed his position such that you are now listening to our views? Is it that now you can consider our suggestions? Any supplement, Deputy Secretary? No supplement. For this paper, we'll focus on disposal before acquisition and other specifics, and we'll put all these in a collated paper to facilitate members' deliberation, and we'll also deepen our discussion. As for Mr. Shek's proposal, the Bills Committee has passed his proposal to us. We did consider his proposals. Perhaps after the meeting we can further discuss with the chairman. If we cannot complete the scrutiny of the bill in December 2013, we'll step into January 2014. On our policies and statistics and data, we'd like to provide comprehensive information to members, and then we can proceed to an in-depth study of the provisions in the bill. Madam Chairman, I hope they can do this as soon as possible. The Law Society has pointed to a very big problem. I'm afraid that a law firm may be affected. So please do not force this upon us. Otherwise, the LegCo will be put in a dilemma. Well, don't consider which councillor is making the proposal. If you are worried about governance, if you are worried that the impact of your harsh measures will be affected, you should think of a solution. In 2012, for the URA, you already extended the period from 2 years to 3 years, so you can do something. Don't move the post continuously. So for this bill, please consider our humble opinion. Point taken, Mr. Sheikh. Have you finished? I think they can grant exemption to non-residential properties, then Hong Kong can remain a free city with free activities. Don't intervene with the market. Thank you. I've heard the request of the Deputy Secretary. I've heard the views of Mr. Sheikh and other members. I've heard the Law Society's views about the pace of our scrutiny. Mr. Sin Chung Tai and some other members suggested that the administration should explain in detail their observations and the details they've taken into consideration. The Deputy Secretary has undertaken to go back and work on that. And then Mr. Sheikh is concerned about the effectiveness of the figures. Well, the administration has failed to convince members. I think next time we should proceed to clause-by-clause scrutiny. As for the 6-month period, after clause-by-clause scrutiny and reading member CSAs, the Deputy Secretary can tell us whether the 6-month period can be amended and be extended to primary sales or sales in the transactions in the primary market. Members asked whether you can relax that for homeowners. So if there's no objection, we'll follow that procedure. I hope next year we'll have smoother meetings and members' work will also be smoother. We'll continue to work hard. If there's no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.